Ray Reed, and we'll call the roll.
Ray Reed, present.
Ray Wisnett, present.
Lonnie Ball, present.
Brandon Barkus, present.
Virgil Clark, present.
We have a quorum. Okay, let's look at the minutes and from the previous meeting and see if there needs to be any changes or if they're approved.
I move we approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Minutes are approved. Okay, TDLR video presentation on the public comment process.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We're just we're waiting a little here to try and build the suspense, so y'all are really excited about saying this. So,
My name is Mary Winston. Today, we're going to explain the public comment process for commission meetings.
And I'm Stephen Short. We'll also explain the rules that you and the commission must follow during this process.
Members of the public may come to commission meetings to voice their opinions about matters under the commission's authority. This is the public comment part of the meeting. This is an opportunity for members of the public to have their voice heard regarding a subject that is not included on the meeting's agenda.
Now, as you might imagine, it would get confusing if everyone talked and the commission didn't know who they were or why they were there. The commission has a few rules to help make this an orderly process and give everyone who wants to make a public comment a chance to speak.
To make a public comment, you must first complete a public comment form. You'll find these forms on the table by the door when you first walk into the commission meeting room. Fill out the form completely, and when you finish, give it to the commission's administrative assistant so she can add your name to the list of speakers for the public comment part of the meeting.
The second rule is that you must limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. 3 minutes can be a very long time if you're nervous.
Yes, it can, but it goes by quickly. That's why it's very important to plan your comments carefully so you can make your point in the short amount of time available to you.
An important thing to remember is that you may not comment on any case the commission must decide during the meeting.
That's exactly right. The commission does not want to ignore you or your opinions, but because of the pending case, the commissioners might have to interrupt you and stop you from making those comments. That could be embarrassing, but more importantly, you will have wasted your time. The public comment portion of the agenda is for the commission to hear what the public has to say about issues that are not specifically listed on the agenda. The public comment period does not include debate about the issues. If the topic you want to talk about is already on the agenda, then you have to wait until the commission gets to that agenda item. You won't be allowed to comment on that topic during the public comment part of the meeting. Public comments are only for topics that are not on the agenda.
If you have a case pending before the commission, you'll get an opportunity to talk to the commission about your case when it comes up on the agenda. For that reason, you will not be allowed to talk to the commission about your case in the public comment part of the meeting. The commission will hear your case when it has to decide your case and when the commissioners have your case filed in front of them.
So those are the basic rules about making public comments at a commission meeting. You must fill out a public comment form.
You only have 3 minutes to make all of your comments.
You may not comment on any case the commission has to decide that day.
Any comments about a topic that is listed on the agenda must wait until the commission takes up that agenda item.
If you have a case pending before the commission, Comments about your own case will have to wait until the commission actually considers your case.
TDLR commissioners are good listeners and will consider everything you say, but keep in mind that they are not allowed to respond to your public comments. That's because the commission is only allowed to talk about things that are on the agenda. That way everyone, commissioners and the public alike, will know how to plan for each meeting.
We hope you find this information useful as you plan to make a public comment at the meeting of the Texas Commission of Licensing and Regulation.
Remember, if you ever have any questions, you can always call TDLR for assistance. While the staff at TDLR cannot give you any legal advice, they can answer basic questions about procedures at commission meetings, like offering public comments.
Thank you for watching.
And now it's time for public comment.
Anybody's brave enough to get out there.
Is there any public comment? Okay. So they don't talk now, correct? Okay, we'll move on to staff reports, and the public comment will come from on item H. Staff reports? Compliance Division?
Good morning, gentlemen. My name's David Gunn. I'm the manager of the water well driller program and pump installer program. Since our last meeting, Adam Foster has given one laws and rules course out in the field. We also, the whole program attended the exam review for pump installer exams to review them and make sure the questions are asking the right things and all. So we did that, and there will be another meeting in January 26th through 29th. I have sent notices out to other drillers and pump installers, but if y'all know of anybody that wants to participate in this, please contact me. Update on field activities. Consumer complaints investigated. What y'all have is a little old, so I've updated it a little bit. We had 4 back then, but since that time, we've done 8 more for a total of 12. Compliance investigation, we had done 63, but we did 11 more for a total of 74. And leads investigated, these are calls or kind of complaints that we get about problems out in the, with wells or abandoned wells and stuff. We had 5, but we did 14 more after that with a total of 19. We also looked at some abandoned wells. We had 11, but we also added 4 more since then for a total of 15. I have received approximately 5 to 6 variances and issued about 5 so far and have 1 pending. If you have any questions for me?
David, I would assume that you'll update this information. That's how it'll appear in the minutes for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Education and Examination Division.
Good morning, members. I'm Kim Witt with the Education Examination Division. Today I just want to mention our new staff. Since y'all last met, we've hired 3 new people. We have Ron Beal, who came to us from DPS with 7 years of experience in the Parent Talk program. He will be on the Driver Education and Safety team, which is one of our new teams in our division. Alice Bradford comes to us from the Department of State Health Services, and she has 10 years of experience in their professional and licensing certification area. And she will be on my team, the school education safety team, school services team, I'm sorry. And then Ann Pascal will be joining us later in November, and she's coming to us from DPS as well. And she has 6 years of experience, and she's also participated in the Parent Talk program for driver education. Next, I just have your statistics, which have been updated through the end of August for your exams and as well as your continuing education statistics. Then, as David mentioned, needing subject matter experts for the exams, we've actually put this information out on the website as of, I believe, late yesterday. So it's on your water well pump installer page with a link to the form to fill out if you'd like to become a subject, either you or anybody else would like to become a subject matter expert. So, and you can pass that along to anybody that might be interested. So, and that's all I have. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions? If not, thank you very
Okay.
much. Enforcement Division.
Good morning, council members. I'm Ron Foster, Senior Prosecutor in the Enforcement Division, presenting the report. This should be short and sweet. You have a copy in your file. During the current reporting period, that is the first quarter of fiscal year 2016, Enforcement Division has not opened up any new cases in the water well driller and pump installer program. Keep in mind that new cases are primarily consumer complaint driven. We do get referrals from our compliance division as well. What this means is that we haven't had any new complaints from consumers on those cases. But we are still working cases that we already have open. By my last count this morning, that was about 91 cases. That includes the complaints that are at all the different stages. So when we first get them in at intake, they could be at investigation stage. We could be involving our compliance folks and going out and doing inspections, and then ultimately with the prosecutor. So those 91 cases may not be at all at the same stage, okay? We do have our final statistics for fiscal year 2015. Those are included in the report. And there's a comparison to the programs that, all of the programs that TDLR has. For example, enforcement opened 77 new cases just in the water well driller and pump installer program, but compare that to the 10,460 for TDLR. As I said, you see that there are new cases open, cases that get resolved, and then as I said, we still have cases that are currently open and pending. The report also indicates that there were 18 cases that were closed in the last fiscal year with disciplinary action, and 10 of those were closed with agreed orders. If you'll recall, what that means is that the department came into an agreement with the person accused of committing a violation to settle the matter. And the reason that's good is that compliance usually is happy because things get fixed, corrections get made, and enforcement is happy because there's a penalty that gets assessed and gets paid. So most of the cases are resolved that way, and that's the way we would like to keep it. The total penalties for the last fiscal year that were collected, you see, were 13,680. And again, probably most of those were collected through agreed settlements. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
No.
If not, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Licensing Division.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. I'm Lisa Hodeck with the Licensing Division. My report includes the last 4 fiscal years, total population of the well driller and pump installers. As you can see, the numbers are slightly increasing over the last 4 years. And then I've also included the numbers for the apprentices, just so we can get an idea of what the licensed population was in 2012 and 2013. And I also wanted to mention that this legislative session, we had several military bills that were filed, and there were several military bill implementation teams that worked with the bills, and as far as putting lots of research and information together for this. So we do have some information on our website regarding military experience in regards to water well driller and pump installer licenses. And that would be experience earned in either the Navy or the Air Force. And again, it's on our website, and it's under information for military service members, veterans, and spouses, and it's under the frequently asked questions. We have yet to receive any requests on the water well licenses applications yet, but we are ready for it, so if we do have some military experience, we will look into it and hopefully get those people licensed as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion and possible recommendation on proposed rules at 16 Texas Administrative Code. And I won't read all the chapters.
Good morning, members. Della Lindquist, Deputy General Counsel.
David Gunn.
David Gunn is here to help me because I'm not technical. On a personal note, I have a whole new appreciation for what you do. I have just bought a house with a well, and so all of this becomes a lot more important. So luckily for me, it's a great well, I'm told. It's 825 feet deep. It's in Hays County, and I'm very excited to begin my relationship with this well. I hope it continues to have water and function. So with that aside, when we met last in August, you blessed some drafts of some bills. Rules. We tweaked them a little bit to implement House Bill 930. And we can do this a couple of different ways. I can touch on the highlights of what those rule changes were, and then discuss the comments. We did receive 3 public comments regarding the rules. Or I can go over the text of each rule individually, however you would like for us to do that. Basically, the proposed amendments were necessary to implement the changes made by House Bill 930. Primarily, it brought in the statutorily authorized the apprentice program. So a lot of the rules touch on the requirements for an apprentice, getting how they get a license, et cetera, and the supervision issue. So, Mr. Ball, if you want to let me know, do you want me to go back over the text of each one? I'm happy to do that, or just touch on the highlights of each section. For example, we have the definition for apprentice in 7610, however you'd like for me to do that.
What would the other members think about it? Do you want her to just highlight it, and then maybe we ask questions?
I don't think we have that much representation from the general public here today. I'd say highlight it.
Okay, and as I go through the highlights, I will touch, we did receive 3 comments, and when I get to that particular rule highlight, I'll mention the comment that came in on that. Okay, so the change in 7610 had to do with adding a definition for the word apprentice. We also renumbered everything, and then in the definition number, I think now 37, we changed offering to perform to offering to act to match what the statute says. In 7620, we just deleted some unnecessary language to clean up the statute. 7621, we clarified the requirements for issuing a driller or pump installer license. I will say that we did get one public comment that was concerned about the licensing and was maybe under the impression that we were adding a license type for a master driller or master installer, which we were not. We were just simply clarifying what it takes to become, the different endorsements that it takes to become considered a master driller or installer. So based on that comment, we are not going to change anything. We just clarify to the general public that is not adding a new license type, but just clarifying what it takes to become considered a master driller or installer. In 7625, these proposed amendments add continuing education requirements for the apprenticeship registration and makes editorial changes to clarify the rules. I will say that we did get one public comment to request adding an additional continuing education for an apprentice at the beginning. In other words, as a qualification to get the license in addition to at the annual renewal time. Because we're under a time constraint for various reasons to get these particular rules adopted, the bill HB 930 requires us to adopt these rules by December 1st or very close thereabouts. We believe that adding a different requirement would be a substantive change to these rules as they were proposed. We can always take that up at a later date when we reopen the rules because they're never done forever. The department is not willing at this time to make that substantive change. There may be some discussion on that, and that would be fine. We're not mandating or saying that that's a bad idea. We just believe that at this time we would have to re-propose the rules with that additional requirement in it for additional public comment, which kind of bumps us into another probably 60 to 90 days time frame to meet again. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Well, I personally think it would be a good idea to do that, to have that. Now, I don't understand all the logistics of getting it approved, but.
Well, it wasn't in the rule proposal as we proposed with the Texas Register, so the public has not had an opportunity to see that requirement to comment on it, yea or nay. It doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but if we were to make that change or that recommendation today and then ask the commission to adopt it, we believe, the department believes that that would not have afforded the public opportunity to see that particular change. It would have sort of been done without an open and transparent procedure.
So you're saying
Do
that.
the process again.
I'm not saying it can never be done. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. But at this point in time, if we were to do that, we would have to re-propose the rules with that requirement in it for additional public comment so that the public could see that new substantive change, because it is a substantive change to require someone to get CE in the beginning and then at the annual renewal. So that would then delay this whole process till probably at least March. So we are trying to adhere to, as best we can, to the bill's requirement to get the rules associated with this new law adopted by December 1st.
And so this would affect new applicants for the apprenticeship program in that period?
Apparently, that's what the comment had asked, for that to be a requirement to get the apprentice registration. Taking the CE at the front end.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject here. The requirement, well, the comment that came in addressed the supervising driller, meaning the supervising driller would have to be on site at all times with the apprentice until the apprentice took the 1 hour CE.
1 hour
So it
rules and
wasn't,
regulations.
it wasn't really on the front end. He could be an apprentice, but the supervising driller would have to be on site until he gets the 1 hour.
Okay.
And that would have to go back?
Yes, sir. Yeah. It'd have to be reproposed.
What's
And we
anyone
don't have
think?
enough time to do that, correct?
We don't.
Well, and the department feels like that change would create a problem for the points of procedure and maybe encumber the ability for the department to enforce that over that period of time?
No, I'm not weighing in on the merits of the suggestion. It may be a very good one. I'm saying that the public has not had an opportunity to see that. change. When we proposed these rules a couple months ago, it was the way you see them now, so that the public gets a chance to say, I like that, I don't like that. And then the normal process would be, if we thought this was an idea, if we weren't up against the deadline of the bill, our decision today might be different. If we didn't have, if this was just a normal rule proposal and everybody felt really strongly about it, we could certainly do that, withdraw the rules, make the change, and re-propose it. But we are bumping up against a legislative deadline to get some rules adopted by December 1st.
And where would that leave us procedurally? If we adopt it this way, when would be our next best opportunity to include that in our rules and regulations?
Well, I know David has some recommendations for some procedural and technical standards rules changes perhaps in the spring. You know, and we're going to perhaps have a work group.
But we would be this time next year probably adopting that, or late in the summer.
I would say early summer, if we could. It's just whatever you would like, if you want to reconvene and take up some issues that David wanted to bring.
So if we chose to make that change today, beyond the points of procedure for public comment on that, how does that affect the rest of the implementation under the legislation? Does it prejudice that, or does it create only maybe the fact that we would not enforce that until we had an opportunity to do it through public comment?
Well, if you want to make the change today, I would have to respectfully say, I'm not going to be able to do it with this particular rulemaking because we are required to adhere to what the legislature told us to do. But we can certainly take it up as early as we can at the next opportunity. If you want to meet again, as early as you want to.
I can't speak for everybody here, but I live pretty close, and I'd be glad to meet anytime we could.
I would too.
To make sure that we have some integrity into our apprenticeship program, because if you've got a person on a drilling rig that hasn't been subject to any of the rules and regulations in terms of statutes that regulate the industry, they really shouldn't be pulling levers on a drilling rig or without a drilling supervisor.
Well, and there's always the fact that they're meant to be under a training program with the master driller. So
As I
certainly,
read this, specified by the driller, is that correct? Developed by the driller?
the master driller, or, I mean, the driller, the supervising driller can always send them to CE. The supervising driller can pretty much do what they want within, you know, they're the boss. It's just a matter of, do we make it a mandate for everybody statewide? So this would not preclude any supervising driller from supervising them directly and sending them to as much CE as you want to keep them employed by you.
But, so we're assuming under the best conditions, that's a point of voluntary compliance.
I would assume that the driller doesn't want something to go wrong, and
Well,
so
I
he
think
would.
it's only right of us to assume that, but then again, I think our basic responsibility is to see to it that as little of the things that shouldn't happen don't happen. So.
And we're also.
Well, but I understand that if we try to make a change now, it creates a problem for it. But as one board member, I'd like to say that let's get what we can out of the program and schedule as soon as possible to get it the way it should be.
I agree.
Okay, we can pick some dates toward the end of the meeting to reconvene, because we may have some additional topics to discuss, maybe in a work group or something like that.
Mr. Wisnet, this is Lee. David's group is also developing what an apprentice program should look like to put on the web page, to put on the website, you know, what the requirements are, what type of equipment they're going to be using, what type of, you know, the supervision. And it's kind of a blueprint.
Well, that's good,
Now-
because that was my next question is what is going to be, if any, regulated requirements of a driller's training program or program of driller development or pump installer development.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what we're working on.
Dave, when will you have that ready?
I've got it almost ready now. We just have to do a couple more procedures to put it up on the website.
Mr. Chairman, it's almost ready.
Right. Almost.
I was just thinking that in terms of when we had our next meeting.
It should be up by then.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, George Ferry, I should probably point out too, it's going to be a while before we even start accepting applications for this. Right now, I think the target date is the beginning of May, so you've got some time to work on rules. Let's put it that way.
Okay, before you start accepting applications for the apprentice program?
Possibly shortly thereafter, whatever. Yes, sir.
Any additional questions about this? If not, we can move on.
Okay, the proposed amendments to 7626 clarify the requirements regarding direct supervision of the unlicensed person assisting the driller or installer, which would include the direct supervision requirement. 7627 adds requirements for registration as an apprentice driller or installer. 7628 adds standards of conduct for an apprentice and the supervising licensee and providing a basis for enforcement. 7670 provides that the state well report may be transmitted electronically to the appropriate agencies. 7678 clarifies that a well screen is for the purpose of preventing sand or sediment from entering a well. The proposed amendments to 7680 adds the registration fee and renewal fee for the apprentice registration, as well as adding a fee for a combination apprentice registration and fee for endorsements to a current license. The endorsement fee, again, is not a new fee. It was just never shown in the rules, but it was on the forms. There was also editorial changes made to re-letter the section. Proposed amendments to 76100 clarify in G1 the size of the steel or plastic casing to be used in the surface completion of a well. And I just want to make sure we have it because that was kind of tricky last time. It says the casing shall extend to a minimum of 12 inches above the land surface, and the steel plastic sleeves inside diameter shall be 2 inches larger in diameter than the outside diameter of the plastic casing being used and filled entirely with cement.
Mr. Reed, you brought that up last meeting, that provision right there.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll take any further questions.
Anyone have any questions about any of these that we just went through?
This may be duplicative, but what is the difference between an unlicensed driller and the apprenticeship program? And what's the point of the distinction there?
Well, the unlicensed assistant to the driller has always been in the statute forever. And at one time that might have formed the basis for an apprentice program, but now with the statutory requirement for an apprentice program, the apprentice is meant to be a more skilled person, because in order to be an apprentice, there's a requirement that the supervising driller provide a training program, submit that to us, detailing the training and everything that's supposed to be going on. So the theory is that this person can be trusted at the well more, is going to get the CE, is going to have a registration. The unlicensed, I think we call them the hand, or just the person there, can help, can do things, but it's always got to be directly supervised, because they're not required to be under any kind of training program. They're simply just, I guess, labor out there to help on the well.
Essentially, the difference is when the apprentice program is in, the licensed driller can leave the site. But an unlicensed driller, the licensed driller has to be there while the unlicensed person, I shouldn't have said driller, while the unlicensed person is running the rig. He can teach someone to run the rig who is not an apprentice, but he has to be there at all times.
And that's in 7626, if you wanted to look at that. 7626, let's see, B, and also in the statute, the definition of this unlicensed person says they can help and assist as long as they're directly supervised. So in the rules in 7626B, we needed to come up with a definition of what does directly supervised mean. And the definition that you've chosen is a licensed driller or pump installer provides direct supervision to an unlicensed assistant if the licensed driller or pump installer is present at the well site at all times during all drilling or pump installing operations performed by the assistant, or is represented at the well site by the unlicensed assistant capable of immediate communication with the licensed driller or installer at all times, and the licensed driller or installer is no more than a reasonable distance from the well site, but no further than a 2-hour arrival time, and inspects the well site at least once in every 24-hour period of operation.
Adela, doesn't that provision go away June
Yeah.
1st?
Yeah.
It should go away with the apprentice
Yes.
program.
With the apprentice program, that provision should go away. That was a
That
place,
is the
that was a
apprentice
placeholder,
program.
that was a placeholder for the last 2 or 3 years until we could see about getting an apprentice program authorized by the legislature. And
Right.
it's-
So in the end, as of June 2016, the only thing that will be left is present, you'll be present, you have to be present at all
Be
times.
present at all times.
So, does that answer your question?
It does, thank
Okay.
you.
So, unless there's any further questions, what I would ask is that you make a recommendation, albeit maybe reluctantly, but make a recommendation to adopt these, to recommend these to go before the commission to adopt, obviously with the understanding that we will take up some other issues as soon as practically possible.
And so we would assume that would be before or after May of 2016, as soon as practically possible.
As soon as, if we want to schedule another meeting.
Yes, sir. George Ferry again. Yeah, we could do it before May as far as starting that process, starting that discussion, scheduling more meetings. There's nothing for it.
I think it'd be best if we can to schedule the meeting enough before they start to issue the
Agreed.
licenses or the.
It's gonna cause a lot less confusion.
Well, in fact, if you wanted to appoint a work group today, you could.
Well,
and
I've
then-
already opened my mouth that I live close.
And then we could even do that by phone before the next meeting. I mean, we could get some ground covered if you would like to do that.
I'll be glad to help any way I can.
So you're the first member of the work group.
Thank you.
Maybe 3 people?
I'm far away, but I'll be.
We've done them by phone, so,
No, that's fine.
yeah.
Phone, definitely.
So you would,
This is David. I can send an email out to all of y'all, and then you can reply to the email if you want to be a part of the work group too. However you want to do it.
That's fine, I'll be a part of it too.
okay.
I'll help.
Essentially, all the work group is doing is making the recommendation that the apprentice take the rules and regulations course before the license is issued, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We may need to
Or before you
convene
can
the
be
work group
alone.
for some other issues too.
Before
I
you
mean,
can be
maybe not just.
unsupervised,
Before you
yeah.
can be unsupervised.
Yes.
We just can't have a quorum, and, but we can do it by phone. So we have Mr. Wisenant, Mr. Reed, Mr. Barkus. Okay. Okay, if, with that, would you be willing to recommend the rules to be adopted?
I would.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
It passed. Discussion and possible recommendation on the proposed rules at 16 TAC, Chapter 76, 7610 and 76100 regarding well casing. And we also have some people that want to do public comment on this section. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Lee. David and his group have been working with this particular group, this fiberglass casing group, for a while. And basically what we're looking for is a possible recommendation, or it could be part of the work group to discuss the merits or not of using and approving this type of casing. So that's why it's coming up on the agenda today, and that group is here to lay it out for y'all to look at.
All right, I will, we have two people that want to speak on this, so
Hello. Good morning,
I'll let
gentlemen.
you decide. First, give your name and who you're with, and then whichever one chooses to speak first, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm Jade Lammers. I'm with Burgess Well Company. We're based out of Minden, Nebraska.
And I'm Kate McCloof. I'm also with Burgess Well Fiberglass, and I'm located right here in Austin.
And kind of the general purpose, we thought it'd be important to come down and demonstrate to you the type of company we are and the type of products that we offer. We've been in business since 1953. My grandfather started as a well drilling business, and I'm proud to say I'm a third generation well drilling pump setting contractor in Nebraska, license number 39759. And in the 70s, we got involved with fiberglass well casing. Being from the Midwest, there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't cost effective to bring that product in and give cost effective high production wells. So we started producing our own. Since then, we've built about 1.4 million feet. It's installed in 36 states and 8 other countries. We are ANSI NSF certified 61 since 1995, so that's 20 years now. And I guess that's kind of the generalities of the company in a nutshell. I guess you have any additional questions, or I guess what we're here for really is to try and ensure that we're a viable option for variances until we become part of the standard as an option for well casing structures. And we aren't for every well, but for the ones that need us, we're about the only option. So
We are currently, we've been trying to work with one driller in particular that has been, his particular wells, they're too deep for PVC, and the water's too caustic to use stainless steel, which is what they end up using, and then he has to pull it. So his biggest complaint is that he either has to watch his wells collapse with PVC or corrode, and he of course has to warranty them. We recently did a project for somebody up north that was a municipal drinking supply well. He was pulling $40,000 of pipe every 2 years, and he's since been using fiberglass. We haven't had well failure in 40 years. Again, we are NSF ANSI 61 certified. We've been approved as a contractor for the Department of Defense. We're working on a project right now for the Air Force. TCEQ has the exemption process that we can move through to do the municipal supply wells, but currently there is no way for us to get any kind of variance. My driller that has had so much consternation around this has so far not been able to use it on 8 projects. Because we've just hit a wall. There's no way for us to even get a variance request right now, and we were hoping that we could find a path that we would be able to get the variance request because we have all of the certifications, and then eventually, of course, become a standard. So we're just a viable option. Our pipe doesn't corrode. It's about half the cost of stainless steel, and you'll never have to pull it. So it's a win-win, both front end and back end. Do you guys have any questions about anything, certifications, anything like that?
I just wanted to make a comment. I personally have used the fiberglass in wells on sites before and have had no issues with it whatsoever. Very good option.
I have no experience with fiberglass casing, so I'm learning, I'm listening.
okay.
Mr. Reed, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Those wells, were they monitor wells or water
They-
wells?
Well, there were monitor wells and recovery wells.
Okay.
So we actually did use them in pumping situations.
Is this pipe, you say casing and column pipe, is this also used for submersible pumps?
Yes.
And what depth have you had experience with?
So far, the deepest one I've done is 850 foot.
I've got two that are 1,080 feet. How about temperature?
The casing has gone way deeper, but and it's, the one I dealt with specifically was 123-degree water.
123?
Yep, and it also had some arsenic issues and some other things like that that were corroding the pipe, like I said, about every 2 years, like Kate said.
I have two wells that are 1,080 feet, 110 degree, brackish water, RO plant.
Okay.
We have the issues. We have steel column pipe, and it is a problem, but this
I actually have some
sounds like a pretty
examples of
good
the column pipe that
thing
we
to look
brought,
at.
so the only other problems you'll have is that, you know, we don't do a fiberglass check valve or any of that, so you'll still have some components that will go bad, but the casing should, or the drop pipe should last substantially longer than your steel casing, steel pipe, so.
Fiberglass is really the ideal material for any kind of RO or any kind of brackish application, just because it is completely inert.
We've had issues with steel pipe,
Oh,
coated
everybody
steel
does.
pipe, stainless steel pipe.
Well,
Right
one
now,
of
we've
the-
got coated black pipe, and it's still an issue.
One of the
Yeah.
things that we saw during some of the worst of the drought, there was a lot of concern with E. coli levels going up, and we didn't see that. What we did see was chloride levels rising much higher, and of course, chlorides will just eat through everything, even the highest grade stainless steel. So again, it's half the cost of stainless steel, and you don't have to worry about it eating your pipe. It's just done. It's sort of, we always say it's good news, bad news. Good news, you never have to pull the pipe. Bad news, we don't get a lot of repeat business. So, but that's also ends up being a good thing.
Well,
for our
there's
customers.
always the pump. It's got to
Yeah.
survive too.
Correct.
I have no specific experience with this before. I do have a question though. Why is it not the standard?
That's an excellent question. You know, even the TCEQ asked us that when we gave a presentation there. It's like, why aren't you part of the standard? And it's just simply because it's fairly new to this area, is what I've kind of been told. Not a lot of people are real familiar with it.
Texas is the only state in the nation that the permitting process isn't just a smooth one, that you have to go through all of the different regulatory bodies, and like we're dealing with here, with bumping up against this wall with the variance request. Every other state, the permitting process, like in Florida, we've been doing wells out there for about 40 years, and they actually spec things out to Burgess, to our company, Fiberglass, or Equal. So it's just a matter of, I mean, honestly, his father, he never needed to go through and get the standard things appropriated and nailed down, because we just were able to move through the permitting process, but Texas functions differently than other places, so that's why we're having to go in and create standards within the different regulatory bodies here.
Are you aware of fiberglass tubing being used in the oil field?
Yes. We actually don't try even for those types of standards, pressure-wise, et cetera. We have strictly been water supply wells. That's what started us, and that's what we focused on, and we've tried to stay with that niche market specifically.
Well,
as
I
a whole.
assume that the Railroad Commission has approved it for the oil field.
It's being, yeah, FRP is being used in oil field for injection wells, deep well injection, yeah.
Lee, I wanted to tell you also that those wells were installed gravel packed and cemented.
Okay.
From just above the gravel pack to surface.
Okay.
So it held up under the cementing process.
The heat hydration, right?
Fully annealed then.
It's,
Our casing is tested down to 2,000 feet. So we're set there, and then again, when you've got especially hot water, the gentleman that he was pulling pipe, the 40,000 pipe every 2 years, that was his issue. He had it, what, it was 130, wasn't it?
123.
123,
Yeah.
I'll make one plug for it. I have a fiberglass cheater pipe on my rig.
There you go.
A lot lighter.
Tough as all.
It's a lot lighter.
We'll take it.
It's a lot lighter. It's a little easier to work with, too.
Yeah. Any questions from anyone? Anything else?
I will stick around. You guys can feel free to kick the samples around. They've been kicked around quite a bit, but you can touch them, feel them, play with them a little bit if you want as well.
It's a much more substantial product. When you hear fiberglass, you think something kind of wimpy, but it's and pound for pound, it's stronger than stainless. So it's just a fantastic product, and it's a solution for a lot of people, and we just like to be able to have it available.
And we do up to half-inch wall as well for deep well, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject here, this is Lee. The question concerning why is it not the standard? Our rules, current rules, specifically state that the following casing materials must be used: plastic casing, NSF, WSF, and WC, or ASTM F480 minimum SDR 26. So it's pretty specific on the type of casing that has to be used on the plastic side. On the steel side, it's A53 grade B or better. So I mean that's the reason that's the standard, or excuse me, that's the reason they're not the standard right now.
We do have the
Robert.
NSF certification and
Okay.
the ANSI 61 for municipal drinking water.
Okay.
We have both of those standards. We've had
Those are
for-
dimensional specs, I believe he's talking about, so.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to review those, but I
You
believe
have
we
the
meet
NSF.
some of those.
Is there an AWWA specification on this pipe?
We are actually, it
In
is in
process.
process. We're.
That would probably be the first place you would want to go. Once you
been
got an
working with them.
AWWA spec,
We've-
Right.
then it's something we could probably spec.
Well, that's what we've been doing. We've been setting up, going through the national headquarters in Lakewood, Colorado, and working with them.
On the
So they've set
A100
up, yeah, they've set up
standard.
a subcommittee, and they're actually developing a fiberglass standard, and they're hoping that it'll roll out in January is what we're being told.
Now, generally, I would think anything that we specify goes by some standard, either a state or federal standard. And most of the time, it would be AWWA spec for potable water and
Which is
things
like
like
a
that.
TCQ as well,
And so
right.
once there's a spec there, I think it would make it easier for us to
So
add
if there's
that to the
other
spec.
fiberglass pipe specs under AWWA that we meet those standards, because that's an additional to being qualified. 'Cause so far, the TCQ is telling us they want us to be part of the A100 standard, which is the well drilling and construction
Which is the
standard.
standard that
So-
we're being considered for.
Right,
yeah,
that's the one
that we're in
we're pushing,
process with.
so. But yeah, that's probably a good question. There are other fiberglass standards out that we do meet, but they aren't part of the A100 drilling and construction standard
Yet.
yet, right?
Yeah.
And we actually, I mean, to be honest, the reason why we've gone ahead and developed the relationship and have started the process and are in process now with AWWA is for the state of Texas.
Specifically for Texas.
Specifically, because we don't have any issues anywhere else. So, but it's new. It's, you know, it's newer here, and, you know, we're just really now starting to develop desal, and look at it as a alternative water supply, and that especially brings fiberglass into play.
I was just going to mention, maybe in reference to the information Mr. Parham provided, I think, if I recall some of my history, the reason there are as many specs specific to PVC casing or PVC pipe, plastic pipe, is because of the variability of those products that we experienced through the years, and actually developed those out of more of a process of, I hate to call it trial and error, but at least of experience.
Yes, that's correct.
And so I don't see why if this product is gonna get some approvals that would be similar to what we're using for our current casing, along with the ANSI and other approvals they have now, that it wouldn't be a considered class of product, so.
Currently, we can do municipal supply wells, we can do projects for the military, but we can't put in an irrigation well here. And it seems kind of crazy. We want to be a part of that standard and just make sure that we're an option for everybody as well.
You can do municipal supply wells in Texas.
Through the TCEQ, it adds an additional 100 days onto the process, through their exemption process, but yes.
We need to talk to the TCEQ then. Continue talking to the TCEQ.
Well, so what are the scenarios where you're getting denied variances with the TCEQ? Is this?
We haven't been denied a variance with the TCEQ.
Oh, I thought you were
We've been
unable to
denied
get it.
variances with the TDLR.
Gotcha.
Any further comment, Lee?
Yes, sir. We would need some information from TCEQ on any of the wells using that particular type of fiberglass casing that they've approved so far.
We have the one up north, and then other than that, I mean, it's been, what we've been dealing with here is just the regulatory issues. So people are nervous even within municipal. We've got a couple of people that are looking to use our product in a municipal well, and they're gonna take us, we'll be going through the municipal, the TCQ process with them. And I'll get you all, I can send you all of that information.
Okay, yeah.
So you're saying you already have some
We have
installed, or?
Yeah, we have one well installed, and then we have a couple of other gentlemen that want to work with us. They're aware of the exemption process with the TCQ. So we haven't started that process with them yet. Essentially, what I've been doing here is just trying to get all of our regulatory ducks in a row.
Sure.
So that you're familiar with the product, you understand that it's safe, you understand that it's used all over the country.
So y'all have had one
Here in
basically approved by TCEQ for public
Yes.
water, okay?
Potable. I think actually that's the differentiation as opposed to municipal would be potable use, wouldn't it? Public potability.
Like for a public supply.
Yeah, that's what I'm
well.
saying is, a municipality can own just about any kind of well, but I think the TCEQ would be interested in something that was there for public use, for public potable use, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they would.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'll get that information over to you. And then I don't know if you want any of the information through AWWA. I can also send you my contact's information. Her name is Stephanie Passarelli, AWWA in Lakewood, Colorado, and she's handling the subcommittee on the fiberglass sticker.
What municipality was it? But just curious.
He's up in Penelope, so I would have to, do you remember offhand?
The acronyms, everything's acronyms. No, I don't honestly, but she's got that information, so she will get that forwarded to you.
Is that just
I
north
can't
of
think-
Waco?
It's over, yeah, by Waco.
Yeah. I can't remember what it is right now.
Mm.
So that would probably be a Lower Trinity well,
I believe so, yes.
high temperature.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
125.
caustic water.
Anything else? If not,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. and-
Thank you so much,
and
gentlemen, appreciate it.
Send all the information that you have.
We will.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You could add this topic to the work group that's been formed. As we get information from, the casing company as well as TCEQ, we can kind of feed it to y'all to look at.
Okay.
The only thing I would say there for my part is I'm unexperienced with that material. I'd be glad to work on rules and regulations, but we might want to have somebody that has some experience with this casing substitute for me on that committee or on the committee period. I can communicate through members.
Have anyone that has any experience?
Yeah, no, I think, you said you've had experience with it.
Not with fiberglass.
Oh, okay.
I've had
I'm sorry,
experience with
I
brackish
misunderstood.
water and
Oh, I know-
corrosive
I
water.
know Ray has, sorry.
And all the other materials that don't work. So I'm open to new materials.
We can add an individual or two that aren't on the council to the work group. I mean, it doesn't have to be a council member. If we can track somebody down that knows a lot about this, topic, then we can use them.
Railroad Commission might tell you a name.
We're gonna need information from y'all too, more, yeah.
But I think your suggestion is good, is that we could handle this issue along with some of the other regulatory issues we're hoping to handle expeditiously.
Yes.
Any questions that you want to ask me, from my past uses?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Recommendations for agenda items for the next meeting. This might be one of them, in addition to the apprentice
Yeah, right.
education situation.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you, George Ferry again, you may have for an agenda item, proposed rule changes. And I guess as we get closer to the agenda, we would know which specific sections, but yes, that could be an agenda item. So.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but our due process, our points of due process can't begin until we have board action to do that. Is that correct? In other words, if we're gonna make this proposed change to the apprenticeship program, we'll have to have an action item on the agenda to approve that. Then the process and the time period for public comment and public notification would begin at that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And then we'd ultimately bring that back to the council, you know, but if we
No, I
get any
understand.
public comment.
Just like we would have,
Yeah.
just like we did this
Same
morning.
process. Yes, sir, yeah.
Right. So the agenda, we're not gonna get anything going on the other circumstance until we have an agenda item to consider about it.
Right.
What's the time frame that these apprenticeship licenses will be issued? I mean, what's the projected?
The bill said that no one was required to get one of those licenses until June 1st of 2016. I think we would have them ready prior to then, but I don't know, I think it was May?
May
of
2nd. Yeah.
May 2nd. We should have them ready.
When's the soonest time that we could have a meeting to get this ball to rolling?
Oh, you could do it far before then. I mean, it could happen just sort of concurrently. The meeting to talk about new rules as this other is being implemented.
We can play the sooner the
So
better.
February, March?
Yes.
Or, Delia's telling me that we have some dates available in January. We have a little bit of a challenge right now, and we have 7, something like that, new advisory boards we're dealing with, in addition to the 18 that we already have, of which y'all are one, so. But it looks like maybe in January 20th, 21st, we could try and schedule a meeting then. And 22nd. And the work group could actually start work before that.
What day? did you say?
January 20th, I'm open on that date.
January 20th, 21st, or 22nd, either of those 3 days are available.
And it's Wednesday, Thursday, or
22nd, I
Friday.
can't, but 20th or 21st, I'm good.
Okay.
I guess we could just send out emails and see which date would be best for a quorum.
You do?
I'm trying to eliminate the 22nd.
I can
If-
send an email for, giving you those 3 dates as an option, and y'all can just respond to me and let me know. That way we can
Okay.
schedule it.
This-
For that, I'll make it good.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can y'all reconsider? Can you reconsider to maybe February, someday in February? I mean, we can do it in January, we want to do it right. I mean, we don't want to be rushing on this. Do we have anything?
I guess what it means is that we would actually have to have the rule language proposed, drafted, and ready to go by January 20th, which would require a lot of late November and December work group meetings, which may become difficult to convene. That's just a practical matter.
Delia is checking February.
Commission meeting on the 10th, so the earliest we could do.
We'd prefer to meet on a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday?
No, I'm saying, I'm asking,
Oh. Oh.
Wednesday the preferred day.
So we can do the
That
Saturday.
works well
We're here
for me,
Monday
but-
through Friday,
It
so I
doesn't
mean.
matter. It doesn't matter to us. It's up to y'all.
Well, I'm open the 3rd, 17th, and the 24th, so.
Well, it looks like February
February.
17th.
Mhm.
February 17th?
Will that work for
No,
y'all?
ma'am, I think I have, did I say the 17th? Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you
it's the
said
10th that I have a commitment.
Thank you. We have a commission meeting on the 10th, so we can't schedule it then.
Yeah, 3rd, 17th, and 24th.
17th or
That's
the
the only
24th?
days you have open in February?
Yeah. Sir?
That's the only days?
No, I'm taking all the Wednesdays in February. I only had one commitment, so.
Oh, okay.
And I'd prefer the 7th, but
What does your schedule look like in February?
In February, we have a commission meeting on the 10th, and then we have a cosmetology meeting on the 8th. And then the week of February 1st, it's for the Department of State Health Services, they're one of the new programs.
So which days would you recommend for February?
If you want to keep it on a Wednesday, would recommend on the 17th or the 24th.
Okay.
And the time would be at your choice, the 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
10 o'clock, definitely.
And or do we want to schedule it for the 17th of February at 10?
that's as soon as reasonably possible. I'd agree.
Yeah, if that's the soonest date.
Practically speaking.
Now we're 1 of 25 instead of 18, so.
Yeah, I think
Leroy?
So, Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't go back to it, we'll be going back to agenda item E, public comment.
Yes, agenda item E, public comment.
I'm Leroy Goodson of the Texas Groundwater Association. My question is, we're going through this process. We know what the proposed work group's going to do we not? It's in black and white on the proposed comment. Why do you need a work group to work on that if you already know what you want?
Yeah.
I think that was my question earlier.
Why are we going to have a work group to labor over this particular issue on this particular comment?
Oh, I just thought it could be combined with the other stuff
Well,
we're going to talk
I
about.
understand, but I mean, we're now assigning it to a group to come back with a recommendation, and I thought I heard enough here today that the recommendation is being proposed.
No.
No, yeah, no, that wasn't proposed, Mr. Goodson.
Well, it's not an
That-
agenda item, I don't think, is it?
No, it wasn't voted on as a recommendation. The change wasn't voted on as a recommendation. It was discussed and agreed with, that it was a good idea.
Okay, can I ask one other question, Mr. Ball? The situation is, I've only been involved in this business for some 44 years now. Explain to me how you reopen rulemaking whenever you've adopted one process in the rulemaking you're going to go back and publish the same rule over?
We would reopen this particular section and any other sections that might be required if we want to do something with the fiberglass issue.
Okay.
And then, yes, it would go through the same public comment.
So statutorily, if the council is making this recommendation, then you can reopen that rule?
Yes,
For
as long as
rule.
we can public
Okay.
comment. And that was the whole point this time, is that it's different
Okay.
than what the public has had an opportunity to see.
We just can't have the same rule open at the
Well,
same
and-
time for two different proposals.
That's what I thought.
Yes, sir.
Well, and here again, I personally feel like, and the reason I suggested, and I think what Mr. Goodson's trying to say is we don't want to operate under any foregone conclusions here. But I think the opportunity to have a decision on this very promptly is available. And so that allows us to possibly dovetail that process with the actual beginning of the implementation of the statutory change.
Right, and you don't have to discuss this at all at the work group. If you want to use the language that was in the public comment proposal, bring that to the next board meeting and then to recommend for, as a rule change, in addition to whatever else the work group might want to talk about with other issues. If that language is something you want, then there's no need to discuss it then.
Leroy,
But-
is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
So that's
I think
February
we all-
17th currently?
February 17th.
10 o'clock.
I think we're all wanting to get it in as soon as possible, so I don't think there's any
And
debate
again,
about it.
excuse me, and again, George Ferry again, the work group's work will begin prior to that meeting, has to. So, you know, you'll be having.
We
you'll
can
be
have a
having
meeting
meetings
right
in
after this if you want to.
I think our work group can have
Thank
it
you.
done in.
About 30
few-
seconds.
Yeah, about 30 seconds and we'll be done.
Wouldn't, Lee, wouldn't it, if we did this in January, wouldn't it give TDLR more time to do what they need to do? Rather than pushing it to February? The sooner that we give the recommendation, the more time that you have before it has to be implemented, the program. Correct?
The implementation of that program is not going to be that rough. I mean, it's going to be a fairly simple procedure to get it back up and running. I mean, like what Leroy said just now, your recommendation has been made.
Yes.
So we're going to take that recommendation as a proposed rule revision and work it through, when? January or February? I mean,
I guess my
January or
question was,
February.
do we have to vote on that, even though we're all sitting here agreeing to it, but do we have to have a meeting and vote on that before you can start writing it into the rule?
Or could I just?
If it's something that you want to, it's gonna be difficult because we have these other issues too, not just the apprentice part. Is it-
Isn't part of it, Mr. Gunn, didn't you just say you have some more changes that you're gonna propose later on? So we're trying to wrap this up in one thing.
Right.
We have
Instead
to.
of, if we go and do this apprentice change, then we're gonna turn around and try to make another change in the rules.
And that's not practically
We
possible.
need to try to do it all at one time. I understand, I agree with the need on this apprentice thing and the experience, but they've got some rules that they're proposing changing. That's what Mr. Gunn just said just a few minutes ago, so they've got to have a little bit of time to work on that. It sounds like a tedious process, but it's the process.
I was looking at the front end work, Mr. Chairman,
Oh, okay.
before the work group, because, you know, like they're saying, David's got some issues. We've got y'all's recommendation,
Okay.
and then anything else that pops up.
In other words, we're talking about more than just the apprentice change here, this one little thing here. We're talking about some other issues.
Any further discussion on any of this? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to adjournment. And I don't think we need a motion for that. We're adjourned.
We'll give you presiding license to do that.